I have something to say. She cheated on me with her sister's husband.
The soft glow of the stained glass windows painted the scene in holy light. A beautiful lie. I stood at the altar, the weight of the ridiculously expensive lace on my wedding dress feeling more like a shroud than a celebration. My hand was linked with my fiancé's, Liam, his grip steady and reassuring. He was the only person in this entire cathedral who knew the truth. 200 pairs of eyes watched us, their faces a mixture of joy and happy tears, all of them blissfully unaware that they were not here to witness a holy union, but an execution. My gaze drifted from Liam's face, past the priest, to the two people standing beside us. My sister Isabella, my maid of honor, looked radiant in a soft blush gown, a perfect picture of sisterly devotion. Beside her stood the best man, Marcus, Liam's older brother. He caught my eye and gave me a charming, confident wink, the kind that used to make my heart flutter when we were younger, before I saw the viper hiding behind the smile. They looked so perfect together, the handsome best man and the beautiful maid of honor, a match made in heaven. Or, more accurately, a match made in the deepest, most treacherous pits of hell, forged in lies and whispered promises behind my back and the back of the man I was about to marry. The organ music swelled, a grand, dramatic sound for a grand, dramatic farce. Liam squeezed my hand, a silent question. I gave the slightest nod. It was time. The priest smiled benevolently. And now, the bride and groom have prepared their own vows to share. Liam cleared his throat, but instead of speaking, he turned toward the large screens on either side of the chancel, the ones meant for a slideshow of our happy moments during the reception. Actually, he said, his voice ringing with a strange, cold clarity, before we do that, we have a little video we'd like to share. A tribute to the people who helped get us here. The screens flickered to life, showing a beautiful, smiling photo of the four of us. Me, Liam, Isabella, and Marcus. Taken on the day of our engagement. A soft, romantic melody began to play. Isabella dabbed a tear from her eye, and Marcus puffed out his chest. They thought this was for them. In a way, they were right. They had no idea the show was just beginning, and they were the unwilling stars. 3 months earlier, I was drowning in the kind of blissful ignorance I would later crave and despise in equal measure. My name is Amelia, and for all of my 27 years, I had lived my life as a supporting character. Quiet, dependable, the sensible librarian in a world that celebrated flash and spectacle. My sister Isabella was the star. A social media influencer with 1 million followers who hung on her every word about fashion, wellness, and authentic living. She was beautiful, charismatic, and had always, effortlessly, outshone me. I had long made peace with my place in the shadows. And then I met Liam. He was an engineer, grounded and brilliant, with a quiet strength that felt like coming home. He was also Marcus's younger brother. Marcus, the charismatic architect, the golden boy, the one Isabella had always seemed to gravitate towards at family gatherings. For a while, I'd even thought Marcus and I might have a future, but he'd always treated me with a sort of fond, dismissive affection, like a favorite cousin. When Liam showed genuine interest, it felt like a miracle. He saw me. He loved my quiet nature, my passion for books, my tendency to overthink everything. He didn't try to change me, he cherished me. Our engagement party was a perfect affair, held in our parents' sprawling backyard. Isabella, of course, documented the entire thing for her followers, her camera a constant presence, capturing these precious memories for my baby sis. She'd chirped, pulling me into a hug that felt more like a pose for the camera than a genuine embrace. I watched her across the lawn later that evening, talking to Marcus. They were laughing, their heads close together. Marcus reached out and brushed a stray strand of hair from her face, his touch lingering just a moment too long. A familiar, ugly pang of jealousy twisted in my gut. It was a feeling I'd had my whole life whenever I saw Isabella with anyone who gave her their undivided attention. I told myself I was being ridiculous. They'd known each other for years. They were practically family now. Liam came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. "Happy?" he whispered in my ear. I leaned back into his solid warmth. More than I ever thought I could be. But even as I said the words, my eyes were still on my sister and my future brother-in-law, a tiny, dissonant note in the otherwise perfect symphony of my happiness. I had no idea that what I was seeing wasn't just a fleeting moment, but the prologue to the complete and utter destruction of my world. The signs were there, of course. They always are, aren't they? Little red flags you explain away, tiny inconsistencies you smooth over with the spackle of trust and denial. Isabella started coming over to the house Liam and I were renovating more often, always under the guise of helping her baby sis with design choices. She'd arrive in a cloud of expensive perfume, armed with paint swatches and fabric samples, but I noticed she only ever showed up on days when Marcus was there to consult on the architectural plans. They'd huddle over blueprints, their conversations filled with technical jargon I didn't understand, their laughter echoing through the empty rooms. "They have such great creative synergy," I'd remarked to Liam one evening. He'd nodded, seemingly unconcerned. "Marcus has always been better at the aesthetic side of things. It's good he has someone to bounce ideas off of." Then there were the text messages. Isabella's phone was a constant appendage, but she became almost pathologically secretive with it. If I walked into a room while she was typing, she'd angle the screen away with a jerk. Once, I saw Marcus's name flash on her screen before she quickly swiped the notification away. "Work stuff," she'd said breezily. "An investor Marcus knows is interested in my brand." It sounded plausible. Marcus was well connected. Why wouldn't he help his future sister-in-law? The biggest lie we tell ourselves is that the people who claim to love us are incapable of a betrayal so profound it would rewrite our entire reality. I was living that lie every single day. The ugliest moment came during my bridal shower. Isabella had organized the whole thing, a perfect, Instagram-worthy event with a flower wall and personalized cookies. As I was opening gifts, my great-aunt presented me with a set of antique pearl earrings, a family heirloom. "These were your grandmother's," she'd said, her voice thick with emotion. "She wore them on her wedding day, and I know she would have wanted you to have them." I was speechless, tears welling in my eyes. Later, I overheard Isabella in the kitchen talking to one of her friends. "Can you believe it? Giving Amelia the family pearls? They're so traditional. They completely wash her out. They would have looked so much better with my complexion." The casual cruelty of it, the way she made even a precious, sentimental gift about herself, should have been a wake-up call. But I just felt that old, familiar sting of inadequacy. She was right. I was plain, traditional Amelia. The pearls probably did look better on her. I tucked the hurt away, another small cut in a lifetime of them, and went back to my party, smiling until my cheeks ached, playing the part of the happy, grateful bride-to-be, completely oblivious to the rot that was festering right under my nose, a rot that was about to consume everything. The moment of impact, when the lie you're living shatters into a million razor-sharp pieces, is never something you can prepare for. For me, it happened on a Tuesday. Isabella had been having a total tech meltdown, her laptop refusing to connect to her new, top-of-the-line camera. "Ames, you're so good with this stuff, can you please just fix it? My entire content calendar is going to be ruined," she'd wailed over the phone. So I went to her apartment, the dutiful, tech-savvy sister. The place was a monument to her brand, minimalist, sterile, with pops of millennial pink. I sat at her desk, tapping away at the keyboard, running diagnostics. "I think it's a driver issue," I explained, navigating through her files. "I just need to find the right folder to reinstall." My voice trailed off. I saw a folder on her desktop, innocuously labeled Projects. My cursor hovered over it. Curiosity is a dangerous thing. I clicked. Inside wasn't project plans. It was subfolders. One was labeled M. My heart gave a strange little lurch. I clicked again. What I saw made the air leave my lungs. It was a chat log. A long, sprawling conversation between Isabella and Marcus, stretching back for months. It started innocently enough, friendly banter, but the tone quickly shifted. "Isabella, can't wait to see you tonight. The little librarian will be at her book club." Marcus, "Perfect. Liam has a late-night site visit. We'll have the whole place to ourselves." My hands started to shake. I scrolled down, my vision blurring. There were photos. Photos of them together, not at family gatherings, but in hotel rooms, in Marcus's car, in the very house Liam and I were renovating. They were intimate, damning. But it was the other folders that truly destroyed me. One was called Business Plan. I opened it to find a meticulously detailed proposal for a luxury lifestyle company, Bellamar, a fusion of their names. The plan outlined how they would use a significant capital injection from a family inheritance to launch their brand after the wedding. My inheritance. The money my grandmother had left me, the money that was supposed to be the down payment on my future, on my family with Liam. Another document, a timeline, detailed their entire strategy. Step 1. Secure Amelia's trust. Step 2. Ensure Marcus maintains a close relationship with Liam to oversee finances. Step 3. Post-wedding, orchestrate a gentle breakup between Amelia and Liam. Step 4. Marcus leaves his current firm to launch Bellamar with Isabella. There was even a section titled Amelia Management, with notes about my personality. Highly emotional, conflict-averse, easily manipulated by appeals to family loyalty. Will likely not fight back if the breakup is framed as what's best for everyone. I felt a cold, terrifying numbness spread through me. It wasn't just an affair. It was a conspiracy. My own sister and the brother of the man I loved were systematically planning to ruin my life, steal my money, and destroy my relationship, all while smiling to my face. They hadn't just betrayed me. They had erased me. In their perfect, curated future, I was nothing more than a footnote, a stepping stone they had used and discarded. I sat there, in my sister's pink-hued apartment, and felt the person I used to be die. The quiet, trusting, conflict-averse Amelia dissolved into nothingness, and in her place, something new began to form. Something cold, hard, and absolutely unbreakable. I copied the entire projects folder onto a hidden flash drive I kept on my keychain. Then I fixed her laptop, reinstalled the correct driver, and left, letting the door click softly shut behind me. The war had begun, and they didn't even know they had an enemy. For the first 24 hours, I was a ghost, haunting my own life. I moved through the motions, going to work, making dinner, talking to Liam, but none of it felt real. My mind was a relentless loop of the images and words from Isabella's computer. Their laughter in the chat logs, the casual cruelty of their plans, the way they spoke of me as if I were a pawn in their game, an obstacle to be managed. The grief was a physical thing, a crushing weight on my chest that made it hard to breathe. Every memory I had of my sister was now tainted. Every shared secret, every late-night talk, every moment of supposed sisterly bonding was revealed as a lie. And Marcus, the man who was supposed to become my brother, was a predator hiding in plain sight. My first instinct was to burn everything to the ground. To send the files to Liam, to our parents, to Marcus's entire firm. To unleash a hurricane of truth and watch them drown in the wreckage. But as I lay awake that first night, staring at the ceiling while Liam slept peacefully beside me, a different thought began to take hold. A confrontation would lead to denials. They would twist the story, paint me as the jealous, unstable sister, the paranoid fiancé. They had been planning this for months. They would have their lies ready. They had called me weak, emotional, and conflict-averse. They were counting on me to fall apart, to cry, to make a scene, and then, eventually, to forgive. They were counting on the old Amelia, but the old Amelia was gone. What they didn't understand was that my quietness was not weakness, it was observance. My aversion to conflict was not fear, it was a preference for strategy over brute force. They had underestimated me my entire life. Now, I would use that as my greatest weapon. Sending the files anonymously was too passive. A public confrontation was too messy. No, their betrayal was a meticulously crafted performance. It deserved an equally theatrical demise. They had chosen to humiliate me privately, to make me a fool in my own life. I would return the favor publicly, on the biggest stage they could imagine, my wedding day. The idea was terrifying, audacious, and utterly perfect. They wanted to turn my wedding into the final act of their deception? Fine. I would turn it into the premiere of their downfall. The decision settled in my soul with the cold, hard finality of a death sentence. There would be no mercy, no second chances. I would let them walk all the way to the altar, fat and happy with their secret. I would let them stand in front of everyone we knew and loved, basking in the glow of a future they thought was secured. And then, I would take a match and light the entire stage on fire. That night, the tears finally stopped. The grief receded, replaced by a glacial calm. I had a purpose now. For the next 3 months, I would have to become the greatest actress of my life. I would have to smile at my sister, plan my wedding with her, and act the part of the blissful bride, all while secretly forging the weapon that would destroy her. They wanted a show? I would give them a masterpiece. The hardest part, the part that twisted my insides into knots, was telling Liam. He was a victim in this as much as I was, perhaps even more so. It was his brother, the person who should have had his back above all others. Betrayal from a sibling cuts differently. It severs something at the root of who you are. I agonized for days over how to do it. Showing him the files felt cold, clinical. But explaining it verbally felt impossible, like the words themselves were poison. I finally decided that the truth, no matter how brutal, deserved to be delivered with honesty and respect for the man he was. I asked him to meet me at the house we were renovating, our house. It felt fitting to tell him in the place where so many of their secret meetings had occurred, to reclaim the space with the truth. He arrived with a smile, carrying takeout from our favorite Thai restaurant. "Thought we could have a picnic on the floor and dream about where the furniture will go," he said, his eyes bright with the future he saw for us. My heart broke all over again. I led him to the living room, where drop cloths covered the floor, and simply handed him the flash drive. "I need you to look at this," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Don't ask me any questions until you've seen everything." He looked from the drive to my face, his smile faltering as he saw the dead, empty look in my eyes. He plugged it into his laptop, and I watched his face as he clicked through the folders. I saw the initial confusion give way to disbelief, then dawning horror. I saw his knuckles turn white as he gripped the laptop. I saw his jaw clench, a muscle twitching in his cheek. When he got to the photos, a strangled sound escaped his throat. He didn't look at me. He just kept staring at the screen, his face a mask of stone. When he finally finished, he closed the laptop with a quiet, deliberate click. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the sound of traffic outside. "How long have you known?" he asked, his voice flat, devoid of all emotion. "A week," I replied. He nodded slowly, still not looking at me. He stood up and walked to the large window that overlooked the backyard, staring out into the darkness. I could see the rigid line of his shoulders, the tension in his entire body. He was a man holding himself together by a thread. "I'm going to kill him," he said, his voice a low, dangerous growl. "I'm going to ruin him." "No," I said, walking to stand beside him. "You're not. We are." He finally turned to look at me, and in his eyes, I saw my own pain and rage reflected back. In that moment, we were no longer a bride and groom. We were survivors. We were allies. "What did you have in mind?" he asked, a dark, humorless smile touching his lips. "They want to make a mockery of our wedding," I said. "They want to stand up there in front of our families and friends and lie. So we're going to let them. We're going to let them walk right into the trap." I explained my idea, the video, the public reveal. He listened intently, the anger in his eyes slowly being replaced by a cold, calculating light. "They won't see it coming," he said, the idea taking root. "They'll be too arrogant to even consider it." "They've underestimated us," I said. "That's our advantage." That night, we didn't talk about our shattered future or our broken hearts. We planned. We strategized. We became co-conspirators in the most important project of our lives. We would mourn later. For now, there was work to be done. Our grief became a silent, shared thing, a dark energy that we channeled into our meticulous preparations. We became partners in a way we never had been before, united by a singular, righteous purpose. Before we continue, please write in the comment which country you are watching this video. We love knowing where our global family is tuning in from. And if this is your first time on this channel, please subscribe. Your support helps us bring even more epic revenge tales of life. Enjoy listening. The next 3 months were a masterclass in deception. We played our parts so perfectly, we could have won awards. On the surface, we were the happy, engaged couple, blissfully counting down the days to our wedding. We went to family dinners, where I had to watch Isabella flirt with Marcus right in front of her own parents and Liam's. I had to endure my mother telling me how lucky I was that Isabella was so involved in the wedding planning, how wonderful it was that my sister and my future brother-in-law got along so well. Every word was a twist of the knife, but I smiled and agreed, all while secretly recording their interactions on my phone. Liam was magnificent. He treated his brother with a chillingly normal brotherly affection, clapping him on the back, asking for his advice on the wedding suits, even planning his bachelor party. Marcus, blinded by his own arrogance, saw nothing amiss. He believed he had his younger brother, just like everyone else, completely fooled. Our evenings, once spent planning our future, were now dedicated to planning their destruction. We became forensic accountants and digital detectives. Liam, using his access as Marcus's brother, found a secret bank account Marcus had opened, the one earmarked for the Bellamar launch. He discovered that Marcus had been embezzling from his own family's firm for months, funneling money into the account in preparation for his grand exit. Meanwhile, I focused on Isabella. I accidentally synced her cloud storage to my own tablet during another one of her tech emergencies. Suddenly, I had access to everything. Her deleted photos, her private messages, her secret calendar appointments with Marcus disguised as vendor meetings. The crown jewel was the audio recordings. I gifted Isabella a high-end digital photo frame for her apartment, a pre-wedding present. It was beautiful, sleek, and had a voice-activated microphone with a direct feed to a secure server I controlled. The conversations I captured were more damning than I could have imagined. I listened to them mock my taste in wedding dresses. I listened to them complain about having to spend time with Liam and me. I heard Marcus reassuring Isabella, "Just a few more months, babe. Once we have her inheritance, we're free. Liam will get over it. He always does." And I heard my own sister laugh and say, "I almost feel sorry for her. She's so clueless. It's like taking candy from a baby." Every recording, every screenshot, every bank statement was another nail in their coffin. We compiled the evidence into a folder we labeled The Project. The centerpiece of our plan was the video. We spent weeks editing it, piecing together the narrative of their betrayal with the skill of documentary filmmakers. It was a symphony of sabotage. It would begin innocuously, a montage of sweet, smiling photos of us as a couple, of our families, of the four of us, all set to a beautiful, soaring melody. We wanted to lull the audience, and our targets, into a state of sentimental warmth. Then, at the precise moment the music reached its crescendo, the screen would cut to black. A single line of text would appear, but some stories aren't what they seem. From there, it would be a relentless, brutal assault of evidence. The screen recordings of their texts, the photos of them at hotels, the bank statements showing the stolen money, and woven throughout, the audio clips. Their voices, clear as day, mocking us, plotting against us, sealing their own fates, word by damning word. The final weeks were a blur of fake smiles and real tension. At the wedding rehearsal, Marcus delivered a heartfelt, hilarious best man speech, talking about his love for his brother and how happy he was to welcome me into the family. Isabella cried real tears. They were so good at their roles, they had probably started to believe their own lies. The night before the wedding, Isabella stayed with me at my hotel. It was tradition. She sat on my bed, painting her nails, talking about how perfect everything was going to be. "I'm so happy for you, Ames," she said, her voice dripping with sincerity. "You and Liam are perfect for each other, and I'm so glad we're going to be real sisters now, with Marcus in the family." I just smiled. A cold, serene smile. "Me too, Izzy. It's all working out exactly as it should." She had no idea how right she was. The moment had arrived. The romantic music faded, and the photo of the four of us vanished from the screens. A deep, resonant silence filled the cathedral. Then, the words appeared in stark white text against the black screen. "But some stories aren't what they seem." A confused murmur rippled through the pews. I saw Isabella and Marcus exchange a quick, questioning glance. Their smiles faltered. The screen flickered again, this time showing a screen recording of a text conversation. Isabella: "Ugh, another night of wedding planning with the librarian. Save me." Marcus: "Just think about the payoff. Every seating chart you approve gets us one step closer to Tuscany." Gasps erupted from the guests. My parents' faces were masks of pure confusion. Liam's parents looked horrified. The screen changed to another text. Marcus: "Did you get her to sign the power of attorney for the estate account?" Isabella: "Done. She didn't even read it." Signed it right after the cake tasting. So trusting. It's almost sad. Now, the audio began. It was Isabella's voice, clear and sharp from the digital photo frame. I almost feel sorry for her. She's so clueless. It's like taking candy from a baby. My mother made a small, wounded sound, her hand flying to her mouth. The video became a relentless barrage. Photos of them kissing in the half-finished kitchen of my house. Bank statements showing thousands of dollars being funneled from Marcus's family firm into the secret Bellamar account. Another audio clip, this time Marcus. Just a few more months, babe. Once we have her inheritance, we're free. Liam will get over it. He always does. Liam's father, a man I had only ever seen as stoic and composed, stood up, his face purple with rage. "Marcus!" he roared, his voice echoing off the stone walls. But the video wasn't finished. The final piece was a clip from the bachelor party, recorded by a friend Liam had trusted. Marcus, drunk and boastful, was talking to a group of friends. "Yeah, my little brother's getting married. She's a sweet girl. A little boring, but she's got a nice little nest egg from her grandmother. You gotta invest in the future, you know?" The screen went black. The silence that followed was heavier, more profound than any I had ever experienced. It was the sound of 200 people simultaneously processing a betrayal of unimaginable depth. Then, all hell broke loose. Isabella was staring at the screen, her face ashen, her mouth opening and closing with no sound coming out. Marcus looked like he had been physically struck, his charming facade crumbling to reveal the panicked, hollow man beneath. My sister turned to me, her eyes wide with a desperate, frantic plea. "Amelia, it's not—" "We can explain." I looked back at her, my face devoid of all emotion. "No," I said, my voice quiet but carrying through the microphone Liam still held. "You can't. We've heard your explanation. We've all heard it." Liam then stepped forward. He looked not at me, but at his brother. "You were my best man," he said, his voice shaking with a rage so profound it was almost silent. "You were my brother." He dropped the microphone onto the altar with a loud thud that made everyone jump. The cathedral erupted into chaos. Our parents were rushing the altar. Guests were shouting. I saw Isabella's so-called friends pulling out their phones, no doubt broadcasting this spectacular implosion to the entire world. Through it all, Liam and I stood together, a small, still island in a hurricane of our own making. I turned to the priest, who looked like he was about to faint. "I believe this ceremony is over," I said calmly. Then I took Liam's hand, and together, we turned our backs on the wreckage. We walked down the aisle, not as husband and wife, but as something far more powerful, survivors who had just reclaimed their lives. The sounds of the chaos behind us were the sweetest music I had ever heard. It was the sound of justice. 6 months later, I sat on the floor of my new apartment, surrounded by boxes filled with books. The air smelled of fresh paint and new beginnings. The apartment was small, but it was mine, paid for with the inheritance my sister and her lover had tried so hard to steal. The fallout from the wedding that wasn't had been swift and brutal. Isabella's social media empire crumbled overnight. The video went viral, and her followers, who had bought into her brand of authenticity, turned on her with a vengeance. Her sponsors dropped her, her agency fired her, and she became a pariah, a living meme for betrayal. My parents, heartbroken and ashamed, had a falling out with her so severe that she moved across the country to escape the disgrace. Last I heard, she was working in retail. Marcus fared even worse. His father, a man of unimpeachable integrity, not only disowned him but turned him in to the authorities for embezzlement from the family firm. He was facing serious legal charges, his career in architecture was over, and his name was mud in a city built on reputation. He had lost everything: his family, his job, his future, all for a fantasy built on greed. Liam and I never did get married. The love we had was real, but it was irrevocably broken by the trauma of it all. We parted ways as friends, two soldiers who had fought a war together and now needed to find their own separate peace. He moved to the West Coast to join a new engineering firm, to get away from the shadow of his brother. We still talked, checking in on each other, forever bonded by the battle we had won. As for me, I had never been happier. The quiet, insecure woman who was afraid of her own shadow was gone for good. In her place was a woman who knew her own worth. I quit my job at the library and used my inheritance to start my own venture, a nonprofit that provided books and literacy programs to underserved communities. I had found my voice, not in a quiet library, but in the act of fighting for my own life. I was no longer a supporting character. I was the author of my own story. My phone buzzed with a text from Liam. It was a link to a news article about Marcus's sentencing. He'd taken a plea bargain, 2 years in a minimum security prison. Underneath the link, Liam had written one word: justice. I smiled. Justice was a part of it, yes, but the real victory wasn't their punishment. It was my liberation. It was the quiet joy of sitting in my own sunny apartment, surrounded by the books I loved, building a life on my own terms. The greatest revenge wasn't the flames of their public humiliation, but the quiet, steady glow of my own happiness. I had walked through fire and come out the other side, not burned, but forged. 3 years after the wedding, my nonprofit, The Next Chapter, was thriving. We had opened 3 community centers and helped hundreds of children and adults discover the power of reading. I had found a purpose that was more fulfilling than any relationship could ever be. I was in the middle of a fundraising gala for the organization, shaking hands and thanking donors, when I saw a familiar face near the back of the room. It was Liam. He looked good, more relaxed than I had ever seen him, with a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "I was in town for a conference," he said as he approached me. "I saw this was happening and wanted to see it for myself. What you've built here, Amelia, it's incredible." "I had good investors," I said with a small smile, thinking of the inheritance that had almost been stolen. "So, how's the West Coast?" I asked. "Good. Quiet. I'm finally just me, not Marcus's little brother." We stood in comfortable silence for a moment, 2 people who had been through a lifetime of turmoil together. There was no awkwardness, no lingering romance, just a deep, abiding respect. "Have you heard from her?" he asked gently. I knew he meant Isabella. I nodded. "She sent me a letter a few months ago. 12 pages, front and back, of apologies and excuses. She's in therapy. She says she's trying to understand why she did what she did." "And have you forgiven her?" He asked. I thought for a moment, looking out at the crowd of people, at the tangible result of the life I had built from the ashes of my old one. "I don't think about her enough to forgive her," I said, and I was surprised to find that it was the absolute truth. "Her actions don't have power over me anymore. My energy is better spent here." He nodded, understanding completely. "And him?" I asked. "He gets out next month," Liam said, his face unreadable. "He writes letters. My parents want me to see him. I don't know if I can." "You don't have to," I said firmly. "Your peace is more important than his redemption." He looked at me, and his smile returned. "You've changed, Amelia. You're formidable." "I always was," I replied. "I just didn't know it." We said our goodbyes a few minutes later, a warm hug and a promise to stay in touch. As I watched him leave, I felt a profound sense of closure. The ghosts of the past were finally at rest. The world had seen me as a quiet, unassuming librarian, a footnote in my sister's glamorous life. My sister and my fiancé's brother had seen me as a mark, a weak-willed obstacle to be manipulated and discarded. They were all wrong. They thought they could write my story for me, but they forgot one crucial detail. I'm a librarian. I know how stories work. And I know that the most satisfying chapter is always the one where the quiet heroine finds her voice, burns the whole corrupt kingdom to the ground, and builds a better one in its place. And that is exactly what I did.